best to
save it.
That bus running up.
Jesus. Oh my goodness. Jeez, what? Damn it, the bus is leaving. What? I thought the bus was leaving. Finally found one. Oh.
Where's Graham?
Things inside the cabin. There's trees and things whizzing past us.
Whizzing.
Yeah, 20 kilometres an hour maximum speed. So it's not really whizzing.
Whizzing is
stretching. No worries, enjoy your tour.
Thank you.
And your lunch, it's a great place for lunch sitting up here.
Thank you.
No worries.
On the coast. Just one moment, folks. Excuse me. Can you always keep on the left-hand side of the road, please? Thank you. And what happened was the skipper kept coming. He thought that he had plenty of water in front of him. His helmet just on the other side of it. That would be the best viewing position for watching whales during September, October, November. So if you come back during those months, I'm going to try and get that spot, sit there for a couple of hours, you'll see literally dozens of whales going past. And on the left here, this is called Catherine Bay. It's one of our favourite bays to come to as well. When my beautiful wife turned 60 on the 11th of April, we came over to Rottnest. That was a Thursday. We had my daughter, her husband, and my two beautiful little granddaughters on board. We had 2 nights there. And Catherine Bay is always very good for catching crays. Well, we set the pots the first night. Guess what? The next morning we had none. Using our service today. You've been a beautiful crowd, very responsive, and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much, folks, and I do wish you well for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. At this time of the day, also they accumulate underneath these big Moreton Bay figs. You might see a few drunk quackers around the place, folks, if they stay here too long. Folks, if you do want something to eat, if you go straight ahead and turn left, that will take you into the main settlement area. We're just going to go very softly here. If people can keep an eye out on the left, that would be appreciated. This lady, can you encourage that one to move? Can you encourage that one to move? Thank you. Righto. Oh, very good job, young lady.
Oh,
Right.
no,
See,
no.
that's what they do. Let me know if it goes anywhere near the wood. Very, very strategic during the Second World War. It's where the women of the Royal Australian Navy were accommodated. Would you believe? There were 500
Thank you very much. Well done.
I'll see you this afternoon. And the crew, Rottnest Express, welcome aboard Sea Eagle Express for our journey down the Swan River and across to Rottnest Island today. My name is Malcom. Once we share the safety video with you, a little bit of other information, I'll be having a chat with you about this beautiful Swan River. We're going to be travelling down it today. There are speed restrictions in place. We'll observe those, but it'll create a perfect opportunity for the river cruise that's in front of us. I'll be telling you about not just this river, a bit about this city, this state, and a whole heap more. It's a very beautiful river. We're very lucky to have this river flowing right through the heart of our city. It's not an accident. This river is the reason that Perth is built where it is. Now this boat has 2 levels, so welcome to Swan River. There is no smoking or vaping anywhere. The toilets are on the lower level at the front of the boat. Fully licensed, like a beer, wine, soft drink, maybe a tea or coffee. Our licensed snack bar is open at the back of the boat on the rear level. We open for our journey down the river this morning and across the ocean to Fremantle. So here's the plan for the next hour or so. It'll take us an hour to head or to travel down the river this morning through to Fremantle. I'll get there about 9:45 to B Shed Fremantle, and there we will make a short stop, take on some more passengers. Scheduled departure of B Shed Fremantle is 10 o'clock, and it's half an hour across the open ocean to Rottnest Island. About to display a safety video screens around the boat. Ask you to please pay attention to this. Welcome aboard.
If you are unsure of the closest exit, there are safety information plans located throughout the vessel. Or just ask one of our friendly crew.
For your safety, it is important that we always have clear access to all areas of the vessel. We have to ask you, please make sure we have clear access to the aisles at all times. Please not sit on the floor or obstruct emergency exits. When walking around the vessel at any time, please make sure you hold onto the handrails around the vessel. Throughout the boat, there is life-saving and firefighting devices, including life-ring stations, located around the outside passenger areas of the vessel. So we ask that you please not touch or tamper with this equipment.
There are 2 types of adults life jackets that can be found on our vessels. These are located under each of the seats, while children's life jackets can be found in clearly marked locations around the vessel. The first type of life jacket is filled with straps around the waist and secured at the bow at the front. The other type is pulled between the legs and secured at the front. Children's life jackets can be found remain calm and follow
Just like a
instructions by the
shoelace, it really doesn't matter how you tie it.
If you are asked by the crew to put on your life jacket, please do so.
Now your
in the
exit
following
is
manner.
down those stairs and
Place
either
the jacket
side of
over
those
your head,
space doors,
through the ladder,
or you might be asked
with
to
your
come
arms
out
through the two
or
legs
to
grabbed
down.
by the
It
straps,
depends on the
pull
emergency
down
that
the
we are
straps
in.
firmly.
Please do
Lock
not
straps
leave your
around the
seat
back
unless
and
you're
in the front
instructed to
behind
by
the
captain
turnpike.
on crew. And when
Repeat the
moving around the
straps
vessel
between
in
your legs
emergency,
from the back to the
make sure
front.
you have the
Then
life
clip the
jacket
straps
with you.
together
Any
using the
questions
clasp.
on that?
No.
Enjoy the river, guys.
Thank you.
On the side of the jacket, you'll find a whistle if you need to get someone. Please remain calm and wait for further instructions from the crew. If the order to abandon ship has been given by the captain, please head to the nearest assembly area or designated evacuation point as instructed by the crew. The crew will then ask you to enter the water. First check to see if you are clear to enter. You will then need to take a large step away from the vessel, naming feet first whilst pulling down on the jacket. Once in the water, swim well clear of the vessel to the nearest life raft or designated area.
Lastly, please be reminded that there's no smoking of any kind on board our vessel. This includes e-cigarettes and applies to all indoor and outdoor. All toilets are fitted with smoke detectors and alarms, so please refrain from smoking on board.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy your journey.
Thank you for paying attention to the safety video. And as the city of Perth disappears behind us, we just passed under the Narrows Bridge. That's actually 3 bridges. The original one on the Perth side, 1954 that was built, and it was at the time the longest pre-stressed, pre-cast concrete bridge in the world. We added a second freeway bridge in 2001 that doubled the capacity of the freeway to the south of Perth. And in 2005, nearly 20 years ago, we added a pair of train tracks, a little bridge in the middle. Perth now has a commuter railway line that goes all the way to Mandurah to the south of Perth. This city has a population now exceeding 2 million people. Mandurah used to be a holiday town on the coast to the south of Perth, about an hour away. Well, it's now a city in its own right. You can live in Mandurah on the coast, travel to Perth by train. The smart people catch the train. Take you about an hour, cost you $5 because public transport fares aren't capped. Before we go any further, I wish to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of these lands we now call Perth. They know this river as Derbil Yerrigan. And Derbil Yerrigan means freshwater turtle dreaming. And we are travelling across today to the island they call Wadjemup. And Wadjemup means the place over the water where the spirits go. And I pay my respects to the Aboriginal elders, past and present. There on your right hand side, that big red brick terracotta roofed building is the old Swan Brewery. Swan Lager was brewed there for 100 years, beginning in 1879. They used the murky water out of the river. That's why Swan Lager tastes as bad as it does. Actually, guys, I tell a fib. The reason they built the brewery right there was to take advantage of a freshwater spring or stream flowing out of the hill behind it, so they could use that fresh spring water to make their beer. So in reality, they've got no excuse for the bad beer. I was born in Swan District Hospital in the upper reaches of this river, and I grew up with a jetty at the end of my street. I spent my summer holidays playing in this river, doing swimming lessons in it, and my Boy Scout group had a boat shed on the river. We did canoeing and sailing. It's pretty special to me, but as we travel down this river together this morning, have a look around you, see how many different ways you can spot Perth people out and about enjoying the beautiful Swan River and river banks. I can see some people cycling and jogging there on your right hand side, but we'll likely see some people doing a bit of fishing, kayaking and other water sports. Less so in winter, I get it. But maybe by the end of our short time together today, you'll get a sense of how special this river is for so many Perth people, and not just me. Well, you don't even have to be active. Look there on your right hand side, there's a a jogger going along, but oh, they've stopped jogging. There's a person just sitting on the bench, enjoying the serenity, a bit of sunshine, as they park up under a couple of Norfolk Island pine trees. Do keep an eye out for dolphins. Our researchers have identified about 25 individual dolphins who reside here in the river. Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins with a healthy population, males, females, adults, babies. They get everything they need to spend their lives here in this river. On your right hand side there is the vegetated bushland, or the bushland of Kings Park. It started as we went under the Narrows Bridge there. Mount Eliza overlooks Perth City. On top of Mount Eliza is the War Memorial. It's a popular place for Perth people to have picnics. 2/3 of Kings Park is native bushland in good condition, as you can see there. Kings Park at 1,000 acres, 400 hectares. Kings Park is one of the largest inner city parks in the world. The 2/3 of his bushland has paved walking trails through it, and with the growing city of Perth continuing to expand, urban sprawl, land clearing, it makes sanctuaries like Kings Park increasingly important for the plants and animals of Perth. One of the things you can find in Kings Park is the Botanic Gardens. And you can wander around the WA Botanic Gardens, surround yourself with 3,000 species of Western Australian plants. Now 3,000 is a lot, but it's only a quarter of the plants here in Western Australia. This is a recognised global biodiversity hotspot. We have an incredible range of plants and animals in the southwest corner of WA. One of the flowers you can find growing in Kings Park is the kangaroo paw. Each spring, the bushland in Kings Park explodes into colour, and the red and green kangaroo paw, that distinctive flower, is the floral emblem of Western Australia. Our bird emblem is the black swan, and keep an eye out for them today. We'll likely see some here on the river. It is the Swan River after all. Now on your right hand side, in front of the high-rise apartments, there is the Blue Boat Shed. It's the famous hashtag Blue Boat Shed. There it is, that iconic and off-photograph building. We'll be seeing it from the opposite direction from all those photos on social media. Also on the right hand side, cast your eyes further around to the left, there's a rowing club boat shed on the waterfront. Look behind that is a clock tower. It belongs to Winthrop Hall, and it is part of the University of Western Australia, or as we call it, UWA. Now UWA was begun in 1913. It was at the time the first university in the British Commonwealth to offer free education. And that meant that university education was available on merit and not just wealth. Now, more than 100 years later, we know that education is not free. UWA is one of 5 universities in Perth. With 18,000 students, it is our largest. A couple of famous alumni of UWA include entertainer Tim Minchin and former Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke. Now the clock tower has become obscured by some Norfolk Island pine trees. They are planted out in the outline of a Gothic cathedral to form an area known as Somerville Auditorium. The blank space within them, surrounded by the pine trees, is where Perth people go in summertime, sit in deck chairs and watch outdoor cinema among the pines. But Somerville Auditorium honours William Somerville. It was he that is responsible for Rottnest Island being an A-class reserve. More than 100 years ago, at the turn of last century, the government wanted to privatise the island. William Somerville thought that was a terrible idea, and he worked long and hard against that, and in 1917 it was declared an A-class reserve. It still is that, so as you explore the island today, bicycles, on foot or on a bus tour, thank William Somerville for that freedom. Now the 1980s in Perth were a time of corrupt businessmen and equally corrupt politicians. Many of these people ended up in jail, including 2 state premiers,
Well, one of these businessmen, and later jailbirds, was Alan Bond. The man we knew as Bondy. Well, in 1983, Bondy bankrolled the Australia 2 racing yacht, armed with its top secret revolutionary winged keel. It went across to the New York Yacht Club and beat the Americans and won the America's Cup. It was a best of 7 series. It came down to the wire. Winning that America's Cup, that big silver cup travelled halfway around the world to its new home there on your right hand side, the Royal Perth Yacht Club. Now, the race took that final race because it came down to the best of 7, last race, do or die. Not literally. Now, the race was 5 a.m. local time. Those yacht club members didn't get up early. They stayed up partying all night long. And their guest of honour was no less than our Prime Minister, Bob Hawke. And on the successful winning of that race, Bob Hawke had had a few beers, but that was Bob. Gave an impromptu address to the nation, and he said, any boss who sacks a worker for not coming in today is a bum. Perhaps that's Bob Hawke's most famous quote. I get a feeling he didn't want to go to work that day. Now, on your right hand side is Pelican Point. Usually don't see pelicans on it. What I can see today is black swans. That's now a nature sanctuary. We get some birds that fly here to the Swan River from as far away as Siberia. For them, that's a return journey of about 13,000 kilometres. See how far it is, the word gets out, the Swan River is a nice place to come and hang out. Now, most of our journey this morning is at a river cruise speed. There are speed restrictions in place, and that's to protect boats in Thames and also the riverbanks. We're now on a spot called Melville Water. It's the widest part of the river, and your skipper's likely to pick up the speed soon. I'm going to pause my commentary during that time, so I'm not talking over the increased engine noise, and I'll resume my commentary once we slow down in a few minutes' time. But in the meantime, you can find me next to the snack bar, pick my brains about Rotto, ask me any questions, help us help you have a fantastic day on Rotto. We do have seats available on our 90-minute Discover Rottnest bus tour. 90 minutes will take you right around the island, you get spectacular views, spend some time at the West End, surrounded by the Indian Ocean. We do have spots available on that bus tour. If you'd like to join us, you can catch up with me at the snack bar. Be back shortly. Thank you. Slowed the speed down as from this point the river narrows, and from here we're going to follow the final twists and turns of this river as it snakes its way through to Fremantle. Now, the Aboriginal people have been in this region more than 50,000 years. The first Europeans to visit this river were Dutchmen. Willem de Vlaming visited here in 1697. They'd gone first to the island we're visiting today, but it didn't have a name for them. They went ashore looking for fresh water. They found quokkas. They didn't know what quokkas were. They thought they were giant rats. And so in Old Dutch, they called it Rottnest Island, which means Rat's Nest Island. They came across here and explored this river, and they found black swans. So they called it the Black Swan River. On your left-hand side, reaching out nearly a kilometre from Point Walter, is the Point Walter sand spit. You can see it there. There's an island on the end. It's a refuge for resting and nesting birds. It's a bird sanctuary. And on a very low tide, you can actually see the sandbar all the way. On your right hand side, there's a waterfront restaurant. And to the left of it is a shed with a sign on the side that says Swan Canoe Club. The nearly 400 members of the Swan Canoe Club are just one example of the many sporting groups who exist at their facilities here on the Swan River. These are groups of people who get together to enjoy the river in their own favourite way. We've got 10 sailing clubs, rowing clubs, canoe club, even a dragon boat club. On your right hand side, there's the vegetated limestone cliffs of Mosman. They plunge down into the water and keep going. There on your right hand side is the deepest part of the Swan River. Under one of those yellow moorings on your right hand side there, you can dive on a shipwreck that is 23 metres deep. 23 metres is the deepest part of the Swan River. The average depth is only 4.9 metres. In most places, this river is very shallow. Now on your right hand side, the first property you can see there on the hill, after the vegetated cliffs, there's a group of houses belongs to the Clough family. 3 generations ago, Clough gave their name to the eponymous engineering firm Clough Engineering. And it was Clough Engineering who built the original narrow bridge that we passed under today. And the concrete bridge we will pass under as we head into Fremantle was also built by Clough Engineering. Now the suburb on your right hand side is called Mosman. It is our most expensive properties. This is Millionaires Row. Look at the house on the waterfront here on your right hand side. 3 stories, orange roofs. That one belongs to Chris and Tia Ellison. Chris Ellison made lots of money with a company called Mineral Resources, MinRes, on the Australian Stock Exchange. The Ellisons purchased that in 2009 for a $22.5 million discount. I know, that's a lot of discount. It was on the market for $80 million, and they got it for the bargain price of $57.5 million. Now at the time that was Australia's most expensive residential property, and it is still Perth's most expensive house. If you want an insight into maybe some people having too much money though, the Ellisons have submitted a development proposal for that house and the one next door that they bought. They want to knock it all down, turn it back to a block of land and start all over again. Personally, I prefer the word philanthropy. But do you know what I love about this river, guys, is that 100% of the river and almost all of the riverbanks are public access land. Anybody could use this river. There's almost no private ownership of the banks either. So for example, on our right hand side there, Chidley Point, you can travel past those houses and find yourself at Chidley Point on the right hand side there. Look at that. She oak trees, grass, sandy beach, picnic tables and barbecues. And almost nobody else to share it with. You could head down there somewhere so beautiful and have it to yourself. The best locations are public. Look on your left hand side, and that is the 20-acre bush reserve. 50 hectares of bushland. No. 6 hectares. Anyway, 20 acres of bushland. That's Point Walter. There's a 9-hole public golf course in there. It's also a popular place for Perth people to have picnics. Those limestone cliffs on your left hand side. Black Ball Reach. Jumping off them is a popular rite of passage for Perth teenagers. Head on down there and dare each other to jump off. They don't look very high from here, but trust me, standing on top looking down it feels like it. But jumping off the cliffs of Black Ball Reach into the deep water below is relatively safe. It's the second deepest part of the Swan River. And it's the deep water below Black Ball Reach that makes it a popular spot for scuba diving. Something that I like to do is to night dive in this river. I grab my scuba gear, camera, a buddy and a torch. A torch is always good if you're diving at night. And jump in and see what we can find. It's something that I often find and like to photograph are the West Australian seahorses. That's right, we've got our own species of seahorse. And it's one of the largest in the world. They're common in this part of the river, especially in summer when they pair up to breed. Seahorses are actually a fish. They've got gills. They just don't look like a fish. One of the interesting things about seahorses, it's the males who carry the babies. He has a pouch on his belly, a bit like a kangaroo does, I suppose. She puts her eggs into his pouch. There he fertilises them, and just under 2 weeks later, he'll give birth to some live little baby seahorses. This happens every fortnight over a few months of summer. So we've got seahorses, we've got dolphins, people fishing, chasing things like blue swimmer, blue manna crabs. Tailor mulloway are targeted species in the river because surrounding us now is salt water. It's an estuary, it goes up and down on the tide. The salt water comes off the ocean at Fremantle. And so we have ocean creatures. But I told you earlier, the Aboriginal name for this island, river, is Derbil Yerrigan, which means freshwater turtle, dreaming. Now, how can you have freshwater turtles in a saltwater river? You can't, and you don't. But for thousands of years, this was a freshwater river. What changed was the building of Fremantle Harbour. In 1892 began the construction. Right at this point, this river was quite unique around the world because it was blocked to the ocean by a natural limestone wall and just a small sandbar connected it to the ocean. It would remain blocked off and separated and fresh. And in all but times of high rainfall, when the river would flood, burst through that sandbar, drain out to the ocean, and then it would block up again, keeping this fresh. You would have had freshwater turtles. But to facilitate the building of Fremantle Harbour, the limestone wall was removed. So was the sandbar, and the harbour mouth, the river mouth, was dredged to form Fremantle Harbour. Well, there weren't environmental impact studies done in those days. And as you can guess, that has forever changed the ecology of this river because it now allows that ocean water to come in at Fremantle, giving us the salt water that surrounds us now. So the Swan River begins its journey nearly 300 kilometres upstream from here as the Avon River. Has its headwaters near the town of Pingelly. It meanders across the Avon Valley, passing through. Now the Avon Valley is the agricultural region to the east of Perth. And the Avon River passes through towns that were built along its banks. Towns such as Beverley, York, Northam and Tujay. And finally, it reaches the Darling Scarp. That's the row of hills to the east of Perth. We just call it the hills. And it plunges 300 metres down the Darling Scarp in a series of rapids and waterfalls, white water, and at the bottom changes names to the Swan River. And for the last 67 kilometres, it's the tidal estuary we're on now. Well, after de Vlaming visited here in 1697, the local Aboriginal people, the Whadjuk Noongar, were left alone by Europeans for more than 100 years. It wasn't until the early 1800s that Europeans showed up again. And one of those people was Captain James Stirling. He visited this river on behalf of the British government in 1827. He liked what he saw and he thought it would make a good place to have a free settlement. Went back to the UK, convinced the British Parliament of the merits of his idea. We now know that the British Parliament approved his expensive idea, based in part to thwart French colonial endeavours. Britain and France had been at war. The Napoleonic Wars were not long over, and neither country trusted the other one, and both knew that the other was investigating this continent with a view to colonising it. And so, Captain James Stirling returned 2 years later, 1829. He returned here with 3 ships and 500 people to begin the Swan River colony. They were free settlers. Everybody came with their own free will and paid their own way. Times were tough for those early settlers. By the 1840s, we still had no roads or decent infrastructure. So what they argued we needed was the free labour that convicts would provide. And in 1849, we received our first boatload of convicts. Over the next 20 years, we received just under 10,000 convicts. Now, the arrival of those convicts, though, caused quite a surprise, because we didn't know they were coming. Spare a thought for communication in the days of sailing ships. Now, we have mobile phones. Do tell me, have you ever got annoyed with somebody who didn't reply to your text immediately? I know, right? Well, back in the days of sailing ships, it was a 6-month journey between the UK and here, which means if you wrote someone a letter from England, even if that person here in Fremantle got the letter, replied straight away and popped it on the boat before it returned, the earliest you could expect to get your reply is about a year. Well, what happened on that 6-month journey was that the boatload of convicts overtook the boat in front of it that was bringing the news to Perth that we were getting convicts. So the first thing we knew we were getting convicts was we had a boatload of them that needed somewhere secure to be housed. Now, we did begin as the Swan River colony. It later changed its name to Perth. Perth, Western Australia is named after Perth in Scotland. That honours Captain James Stirling's Scottish heritage. And I made a point of checking out Perth in Scotland, and I can assure you which of the two has better weather. Look around you now. This is winter in Perth, Western Australia. I went to Perth, Scotland in summer, and it was worse than our winter. Go figure. Now, this Western Australia is a massive state with an arid interior. It made exploration difficult and sometimes deadly. Lack of water will kill you. Then gold was discovered in the 1890s. It set off a gold rush, and people flocked to Western Australia, not just from all over Australia, but all over the world. The population of this state quadrupled in less than a decade. Now, in the late 1800s, the individual states of Australia operated independently. They still had their direct lines of authority back to Britain, and many states had their own stamps or currencies. However, something momentous happened. On the 1st of January 1901, the individual states of Australia federated. We became the Commonwealth of Australia. And so, as those individual state leaders put aside personal political ambitions, on the 1st of January 1901, the nation of Australia as we know it now was born. A lot has happened since then, but that's going to have to be a story for another day. Have a look on your right-hand side, across the water there. Look at those rocky limestone cliffs. We love lazy names here, because guess what we call that rocky bay there? Yeah, we call it Rocky Bay. You guys all got it in one. Before we built Fremantle Harbour, we had a long jetty sticking out from Fremantle. And guess what we called the long jetty? We called it the Long Jetty. Oh dear. Look at the houses there on your right hand side. Look at the big red brick building on the left end of it. During the first half of last century, that was the Burlap and Sons soap and candle factory. Soap and candles were manufactured there and exported widely. You'd have to think that that kept the hard-working wharfies of Fremantle clean and allowed them to see at night time. There's now apartments. Lots of candles. Western Australia being that huge state, we've got 13,000 kilometres of coastline. Border Police, whose base is there on your right hand side, do a fantastic job keeping everybody safe and well behaved. By far their busiest day on the water between Fremantle and Rottnest. That body of water is called Gauge Roads. We'll be travelling over Gauge Roads today. But February, there is a date each year in February when the Rottnest Channel Swim is hosted. And on that date, a whole bunch of brave people attempt to swim nearly 20 kilometres across the open ocean to Rottnest Island. They start at Cottesloe Beach, just here on the mainland, swim across the open ocean to Thomson Bay, Rottnest. Thomson Bay is where we'll be arriving in today. So as we travel on a ferry, imagine having to swim. A successful solo swim, which is a challenge, entitles you to a number plate for your car. You can have a special number plate that says RCS, Rottnest Channel Swim, and then the number of solo swimmer that you are. And even now they're only up to the 3,300s. On your right hand side, that marina and the apartments behind it is called Pier 21. It was built in the 1980s as we were getting ready to host the America's Cup Defence in 1987. So winning the America's Cup in 1983, like I told you about, Australia 2, well, what happened in the 4 years that followed is it set off a whole bunch of frenzied activity. Okay, money flowed into renovations, restorations, new businesses sprang up, and the infrastructure was built. Those apartments, people need somewhere to stay. South of Fremantle, just near the fishing boat harbour, they built a new harbour for the yachts. It's called Challenge Harbour. But even now, 40 years later, we still benefit from some of those investments back then. They were exciting times. I know they were because our number plates on our car said Western Australia, WA, State of Excitement. Could say worse things. Wait a while. Looking at the continent of Australia, Western Australia takes up a third. This is a massive state on a massive country. If Western Australia, we're over 2 million square kilometres, okay? So don't let any Texan tell you nothing's bigger than Texas. Notice how they forget about Alaska? Well, we could fit 2 Alaskas or 4 Texases in Western Australia. If we were to secede, if Western Australia decided to become its own country, Western Australia would be the 10th largest country on Earth. That's how big we are. Do consider that if you're planning a driving holiday. Okay, the scale of your map might be deceptive. Do allow time. There can be some very long driving days. On your left hand side there's a waterfront cafe called Dome. Dome is a West Australian coffee chain with more than 100 outlets. Many of them like this have nice views. There is even a dome on Rottnest Island. Next building coming up on your left on the waterfront there with a red roof, built in 1896. That was originally the Grand Family